Hey, welcome to Plant Yourself. I'm your host, Howard Jacobson. Two quick announcements before we get to today's show. If you're interested in becoming a health coach, I'm offering another run due to popular demand for people who can't make 8 p.m. on Wednesday nights, Eastern Time. So we're doing another run of the program, which will meet, the practicums will meet at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays, Eastern Time, U.S., which means if you're in Europe or Africa, that might be good for you. Also, if you're in the U.S. and evenings aren't good and you have free time in the mornings, either 7 a.m. Pacific time or 10 to 11:30 Eastern, then you can participate. If you want to find out more about becoming a wicked effective health coach, you can go to wellstartcoach.com. Second thing is, if you're not aware of it, Josh LaJaunie and I have a book that is free on Amazon Kindle. It's called Sick to Fit. And if you just go to Amazon and search for Sick to Fit, you'll be able to download it for free and read it on any Kindle-enabled device, even a phone, smartphone, tablet, computer, whatever. All right, let's get to today's episode. This is the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm Howard Jacobson of plantyourself.com and wellstarthealth.com. This podcast is part of my mission to help you live a healthy and heritage-informed life. So this week, I get to interview two of my favorite people in the world, Ramona and Dustin LaJaunie. So the name LaJaunie might be familiar to you through Josh. Ramona is Josh's mother, and Dustin is Josh's little brother. And they are part of a family that has lost over 1,000 pounds through running and plant eating. And Mona and Dustin are the cooks in the family. And they never quite relinquished that role, even when they discovered that all the things they had been cooking and eating up to that point had been fueling weight gain and heart disease. And in fact, one of their biggest challenges was abandoning all of their classic Southern recipes, the things they grew up with from Mississippi and Louisiana, that they loved and took pride in making and sharing, the gumbos, the jambalayas, the turnip stew, the cabbage rolls, all the delicious desserts, in favor of this, low-fat, plant-based fare. And they decided there had to be a way to have the best of both worlds, both their cherished traditions and their health. And so to that end, Mona and Dustin began experimenting, at first individually, and then I think they shared notes in the kitchen. And I know Mona spent about a year before she was satisfied with her whole food plant-based gumbo recipe. And after finishing the Crescent City Classic 10K a couple of years ago, there was a big booth that was sponsored by Whole Foods in which they took her recipe and cooked huge vats of it for all of the runners. So on that day, thousands of people got to experience that whole food plant-based Southern cooking can be just as delicious and far kinder to your body than the traditional version. Dustin, meanwhile, was also working on his own jambalaya, kebabs, hash browns, desserts, breakfast bowls, things that he could put in front of his friends, people who hadn't adopted this diet, and they would say, yeah, I can see this. This is pretty good. And we don't need to change everything about the way we eat. We don't need to just have salads or granola or muesli or sticks or rabbit food or whatever people's impression of whole food plant-based food is. We can still enjoy these traditions, these wonderful tastes, and we can do it without a side of obesity and chronic disease. And last month, all their hard work culminated in the publication of a cookbook. It's called Pure Ambrosia, and the story of how it got its name is revealed in our podcast interview. Pure Ambrosia, LaJaunie Family Traditions Recreated for Health and Longevity. And so we talked about their individual stories. We talked about the book. We talked about food. And we also spoke about the experience of their family transformation and the surprising ways in which each of them changed and grew far beyond the food and the running and the general outlook on health. We talked about Mona's work with her local Plant Pure pod, part of Plant Pure Nation, and Dustin's explorations of gardening, running, and becoming an advocate for healthy living. And I am sure at the end of this conversation that you will love and respect them as much as I do. So we videotaped this one as well. You can catch it on the show notes page for this episode, which is plantyourself.com/325. You can also go on YouTube and just search for Ramona and Dustin LaJaunie Plant Yourself, and you can find it there at the source. And the only thing I'll say before we get right into the interview is I have a favor, and that is that you go to Amazon and you purchase the Kindle book. It's $2.99. And far more than the impact of the money on the LaJaunie's would be just looking at the stats and seeing that what they have done is valuable in the world and that there are a lot of people out there who are going to benefit from it. So if you've got $3 and you're hankering to make some recipes from down home Louisiana, down home Mississippi, I would encourage you to go to the Amazon page for Pure Ambrosia and buy it, download it, and start cooking. And also, if you could offer a review and let people know what you think of it, that would help them out as well. All right, thanks for that. Let's get to it without further ado. Mona and Dustin LaJaunie, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thanks.
Hey, nice to see you.
Yeah, so we're here to sell books. We are here to sell your new Kindle cookbook, Pure Ambrosia, which is all these home family recipes from Louisiana and Mississippi. But we are here to do much more than that. First, I want to introduce you both to my podcast listeners who may not know you. So, Mona, ladies first. Why don't you tell us a little bit, who you are and a little bit of your story.
My name is Ramona LaJaunie. I have been whole food plant-based about 6 years now. I have 3 amazing children. I have Josh is my oldest. Many of you know Josh. This is Dustin, my middle child, and then Cassie is my baby. And I have an amazing little grandchild, Grayson, and some awesome in-laws. I have BJ and Derek and Mishka. And my whole family's whole food plant-based, and we've lost over 1,000 pounds. And that's about it.
All right, great. So we'll come back and unpack that. And Dustin, your turn.
Hello, my name's Dustin LaJaunie from Louisiana. I've been plant-based for about 5 years now. Lost a total of 190 pounds. Just finished my first ultra marathon this year. Always loved cooking. Part of the reason how I was able to get to be so big because I was good in the kitchen. But I like the new challenge, the challenges of cooking this way because it's not mainstream, and I like doing new stuff with new ingredients. It's pretty cool.
Cool. So you guys, you're part of this kind of amazing LaJaunie clan that is that so many people are looking at and saying, "Wow, like I can't believe what's possible." Because people feel like, okay, yeah, maybe I could make this change myself individually, but the way you guys have done it as a wholesale, as a family with in-laws, with grandchildren now. It's I look at it and I just look at your before and after pictures and it feels a little bit like magic. What was the process actually like from
me?
Yeah,
I think that it was necessary for my success for the whole of the family to be involved, or at least interested at some point, and then growing on in that direction, because we do so many family gatherings that if everybody wasn't on board, I don't see how it would have been sustainable. So I think it's a key to success.
Uh-huh. What about sort of the dynamics of I guess so Josh went first.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And I know in my family, we love each other. And whenever one of us comes home with a new idea, it's like a virus. And like the rest of us are like the immune system trying to kill it.
Absolutely.
That's the way it was at first. Yeah.
I was. And the only thing I couldn't argue with was his results.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's what I couldn't argue with.
Yeah.
So at first, did it seem like just another thing he was trying, like he had tried so many things before, and you were just like, okay, this is crazy. This too will pass?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to wait and see. Because it was crazy. It was like you wanted me. I wasn't a big meat person, but he wanted me to get a dairy. And I was like, that is insane. I can't get dairy. And so I said, I'll just watch and wait and see. And he got me interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, he was very persistent too. You know how he can be.
Right. And so, Dustin, you went second, right? Is that right? In terms,
I kind of, I started. I didn't jump in full fledged like Josh did, but after he did and I saw his results, it had me curious, and I had the most to lose, you know. So I started getting curious and started implementing, and then, you know, started getting more and more strict and giving up more and more things, and the results kept coming. The more I changed and did, the more results I got.
See, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but I do want to say that I think going second is actually harder than going first. There's this video that it's been like going around. It was running around YouTube in terms of like leadership. And the video was this like a big like field, grassy field with people sort of picnicking and partying all over it. And one guy is dancing, and he's doing this like very wild dance for like 10 minutes all by himself. And then eventually he gets a crowd of people all dancing. And so the plot of the thing is like, that's leadership. But really, if you watch the video, the turning point was the second person.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, okay, like it's okay to be a crowd, or it's okay to do this crazy dance.
It's okay. It's okay to do this, to follow, you know, to be a follower of the first person is actually to be a leader. And it actually means not only being a leader, but kind of humbling yourself a little bit to be second. Mm-hmm. I just kind of want to honor, like in what I've seen of this whole family transformation, that it wasn't Josh wasn't the turning point. You were.
Well, I got to be honest. When I say I did it because I was jealous of the results Josh had. And I desperately needed those results, and I was aware of it. And, you know, now the results took work, you know, and, you know, now by default, it's nice to see that I was, you know, helping the next person in the family to come do the crazy dance, right? But at the moment, I was just fishing for those results. I wanted them, and Josh had them, and I wanted them.
Right, but what results in particular? Because I know that Josh had already lost 100 pounds a few times. He'd gotten pretty svelte, you know, from keto, from, you know, these drugs that were taken off the market. Right. Were you like following him in those things earlier as well?
I did, and I followed him with putting the weight right back on. The only thing different this time was I've never seen him lose weight and then become very athletic, become enabled to do, you know, some athletic things and running particularly. And I was like, well, and, you know, not only that, but then the information that he pushed on me to look at, you know, it just opened my mind. It made sense. And I had a lot of awakenings, you know, and it's amazing how many other awakenings that are not food connected with food at all or diet at all, but have come from changing my diet.
Absolutely.
But this time just seemed different because never before had it ever become an athlete after, you know, starting to lose weight. And, you know, that was a game changer.
Gotcha. And who was next? Ramona, were you next, or was there a spouse or partner or Cassie?
I think Dustin and I were kind of simultaneously doing it together. Josh focused on me more because I was the cook. And so he felt like, because my dad was still with us, and he felt like that if he could change the way I was thinking, then we would change the cooking, and then automatically the food would be better. Okay. And so that's kind of what happened. I started cooking differently, and it was good food. And so they were like, okay, it's not this bad. And Josh was just melting in front of our eyes. I mean, we all struggled with weight, all of us. I have been overweight my whole entire life. I've tried, you name it, I've tried. I even had the lap band surgery, and I lost weight and gained it all back. I've since had it removed. So I was desperate. Somebody asked me what made me change, and I think it was just a perfect storm. I was desperate. I was searching for answers, and Josh was living it out loud in front of me, and I'm thinking, this may be it. This may be it. And so I jumped on board, and I'm so glad I did. So.
Cool. So you said the food, you were cooking and you changed the way you cooked and it tasted good. I'm really curious about that because it wasn't cheese. It wasn't, the very, very high fat stuff. What the first day you said, okay, I need to cook something that my family will like and that's healthier. What did you do?
Well, the first thing I did was, to be honest with you, I didn't completely get rid of all the oil. I switched to olive oil, of course, and I used very little oil. I would maybe take a paper towel and wipe the pan and stuff like that. And I just removed the bad stuff. I didn't use dairy and I didn't use meat. So my first few meals were good, but I've since grown because I know now how I can substitute things for dairy and for meat. But the main thing is we cook with a lot of seasonings. We cook with a lot of onions and celery and bell pepper and garlic. And if you just eat that, it's delicious.
So you were able to see that the core of your cooking was already plants.
Right.
Gotcha. And what about... Yeah, go.
The beginning, we used a lot of those transitional foods that you could find, even though very minimal in our markets around here. That's what we used, and then kind of looked at those things, and just by looking at the ingredients list, looked at those things and said, well, I wonder if I could make this dish, that kind of in the same way that they made this transitional food that I'm buying at the grocery store, like a veggie patty.
Right.
That was one of those, I think it was, I forget the name brand, but it was a California burger. And I leaned heavily on those, that and eating as much greens and fruits as I could. But it was one of those things that kept me from going back to the other foods I was trying to avoid. And by using those transitional foods, it gave me ideas because I wasn't a stranger. We both were not strangers in the kitchen. I was like, well, hey, maybe I can create some of my own stuff. And by cleaning up the things I don't want, even in the transitional foods, right? Because the transitional foods I didn't want to lean on them forever because it's going to limit my results. But it gave me ideas on what I could do in my kitchen.
Right.
And so we just started, trying to recreate the same dishes just without the heart disease.
I would look like right now, I want to do boudin. I want to try boudin.
So what's that?
Boudin is a Cajun sausage, and it's made from, I don't know, pork stuff. It's not good.
It's made from pork and some of its innards, and it's all ground and cooked with seasoning and rice. And it's just packed with its rice and the pork and the pork innards and cooked and seasoned and packed in a casing, which is really just an intestine.
Right. And it's good. I know it sounds terrible, but it's delicious. But what I do, this is the way I think, okay? I want boudin. But what I'm going to do is I'll look at the recipe and I go, okay, the onion, celery, bell pepper, garlic, all that we can do. Now, and rice. So what do I need to do to not put the pork in it? Okay? So I'm thinking maybe ground mushrooms. Okay? Maybe a little bit of the cauliflower walnut meat that you make. So that's how I start creating recipes is I look at something that I like, I look at the recipe and I start thinking, how can I fix it different, more healthy? That's the beginning.
Gotcha. And do you get it right the first time a lot, or do you tend to experiment?
Oh, no. My gumbo took me probably a year before I got it the way I wanted it. Yeah.
Well, I think, that's really important for people to hear because they'll say, okay, well, I'm going to try this plant-based thing, and they're going to cook a dish. And we get this a lot from people at WellStar, like, oh, I made lentils, they were terrible. And like in their mind, that means, oh, well, this doesn't work. I give up.
This type of food is terrible,
Yeah.
which isn't the case, right?
Yeah, my first couple of lentil loaves were awful. I didn't like it, and I almost gave up. But I said, I know I can do it better. I know what I need to do next time. And it's a process. And then and the thing about it, I'm from Mississippi and Louisiana. I'm a cook. Most cooks that are comfortable in the kitchen don't use recipes. They don't use measuring spoons and measuring cups. So the hardest thing for me was to measure everything. And so when I got a recipe just right, the way I liked it, then I had to start measuring to make sure that I had all the measurements correct. So it's a huge process. It takes time.
So that's really interesting that for me, the way I would define like a cook is someone who has lots of cookbooks, lots of recipes, right? But that's more foodie. Like the way you're talking about it is like an actual chef who would innovate.
Yeah, to create. Yes, it's an art. And I use a recipe as a guide. Very rarely do I ever follow a recipe.
I really love to be in the kitchen before this lifestyle. And I kind of got bored with it, to be honest with you, because it comes to a point to where you can pretty much make anything taste good. If you're after the caloric density, you can make anything. You can make anybody like something if you put enough butter, cream, bacon, stuff like that in it. So the challenge is really out the window. But with the new lifestyle, I'm like, hey, I can recreate some dishes that we are known and popular for down in the South, but let's leave the heart disease out of it. Let's still be number one in the kitchen, but without it killing us too soon. So the challenge is back in my mind, in my eyes, to recreate these dishes without those butters and creams and bacon. And it's let's have our salad and eat it too.
Right.
Let's make good meals and not have to die early deaths as a consequence.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love that. It reminds me a lot of the work I've done with people on entrepreneurship, which is you think, an entrepreneur, what they really want is like $100 million of investment and access to the market, and it turns out that all great entrepreneurship innovation is based on constraint. On, we didn't have enough money, so we had to figure out this other way to do it. And your constraint here is
corn. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
That's really interesting. So how did the rest of the family come along?
I think probably Cassie was next. And Cassie had to basically do it on her own because Derek wasn't with her for almost a year. So she was on her own in her home for about a year. And but once he started seeing the result, it just started happening like the domino effect.
Well, I'll tell you, for Cassie, I told Cassie because she saw that I started having results, and I told her, I said, Cassie, I know that we've all tried different things. I said, but this is the most sustainable way that I've ever lost weight before. It makes, not only am I losing weight, but I feel better. I feel like I'm doing it right because I feel good. The Zinadrin, I was losing weight, but I could feel the hair growing on my neck, and I couldn't sit still for 10 minutes. And then as soon as I couldn't get them anymore, all the weight came right back. I just didn't feel right. When it doesn't feel right. And I told her, I said, it just feels good. The weight's falling off. I never dreamed I would want to run, but it had me wanting to move my body. And I told her, she was convinced to try it, and that's been 4 years for Nancy?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mona.
I was going to say, I felt the same way that when I first started eating this way and losing weight, I wanted to exercise. So I went. And I was hesitant to join the gym. And I said, I don't want to join the gym. I said, because I always did it and wasted money. So I said, I'm going to join the gym and I'm not even going to last the year. Well, that's been 5 years ago. And I've been going 3 times a week now for 5 years. So it does give you energy and make you want to move.
Yeah.
Comfortable in your body.
Yep, I remember hearing that from Garth Davis after, he changed, like he had never been an athlete, never viewed himself as even having a body. Like it was, he was always a mind. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to go crazy if I don't do something with this energy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So, Dustin, you mentioned like a lot of other things started shifting for you around mindset and philosophy beyond just the eating habits. What?
Just I because the food part, the learning about a plant-based diet, not only did it open my eyes or open up my mind to what I didn't know, it made me hungry to find out more. And I just like watching What the Health, and not only figuring out or understanding the way we've been taught to eat, but also trying to understand the way our markets work and the way our government works and the way that industry can influence policy and legislation. And I've learned a lot about, different operations and the way that we, my mind has, I've changed as a person, I believe, because
Absolutely.
I watched a documentary about how the gut is tied to the brain and how it's believed that our gut used to be our primary decision maker, before our brain, and how intuition comes from our gut. And I really believe that after I cleaned up what I put in my gut and started putting something in there that nature could recognize, I started thinking differently, and my eyes started opening, and the blinders came off, and I don't know. I just want to live a more simple life in touch with nature, and I want to be just the simple man. I don't have some of the same aspirations as I used to have. I don't want half of the things I used to want. I feel a lot different politically, and I just I think bringing awareness to my diet helped me bring awareness to everything else.
Yep.
In my life, and having a lot more compassion.
I totally agree.
Wow, I've never heard it put that way before. It's almost like your gut was like colonized by industry.
Yes.
Right? Like the bacteria that want you to have sugar and processed food also require a certain mindset.
Yeah. I believe it.
It's almost like I've read about cats have this bacterium that humans can ingest, that they or that they're like become cat lovers, or I think there's bacteria that can get into the brains of mice, that the bacteria then complete their life cycle in the digestive system of a cat, and they make the mice go and run towards the cat.
Wow.
Not to that extent, but somehow we think it's us doing the thinking, but you have to kind of let go of that food to realize how unindependent you have been.
That's crazy, but so right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mona, what about you? What about shifts that you made beyond the kitchen and the plate?
And I'm like Dustin. I'm amazed at the way my thinking has changed. I was raised very strict, Southern Baptist, North Mississippi. So I had a lot of views that weren't very popular. And so it's got me thinking different, totally different. It's almost like a 180, and it's hard to explain, and I don't understand. All I can do is agree with Dustin that my gut is healthier. And I read this article quite a few years ago that 70% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. And so, I firmly believe that. And so now that my gut is healthy, it's making me think in a healthier way, being more open-minded, being more aware of people and differences in animals and the earth. And I was one of those naysayers about climate change until 6 years ago or 5 years ago, and I get it now. And so it's like a new awareness of things. I don't know. It's an awakening, I guess.
I'm imagining how hard that must have been and how much courage it must take to do a 180, especially since you live in the same town that you lived in before. And I know it's a fairly, I don't know if the word is conservative, but
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to get into kind of some of the specifics of these shifts, because it's so interesting to me. Like the moment, like what is it like the moment you wake up and you realize that this belief you've identified with your whole life, and maybe you've put out lawn signs about it, is no longer valid for you? Like how do you deal with that internally and then start talking about it?
It's a battle. It's a battle. It was scary. It was extremely scary. There's many people that I love very, very much that still believe the way that I used to believe. And so it's scary, but it's something that I can't pretend that I don't feel anymore. You know what I mean? It's something that I have to say. I speak up now when people are talking and I don't agree. And
do you have any specific examples?
Well, climate change, for instance, I talked about that quite often in my little hometown school here, that when I was a teacher, and a lot of people go, well, I don't believe that. I don't believe in climate change, you know, and that's and I was called a tree hugger, you know, and I'm the hippie thing, you know, and I'm okay. I'm totally okay with being a hippie, but it's not the norm. And I don't want to paint an ugly picture of the South, but they have ways that have been tradition, you know, and who goes against tradition? It's just the way people think. And when you go against it now, yeah, but you know, when I was thinking on the way over here, driving over here, I was thinking about this podcast and how it's almost, I had to mourn what I was leaving behind, you know, which is crazy. But because when you leave something that you've known all your life behind, it's difficult.
Right.
But if you know it's wrong, it's the only thing you can do.
Right. I mean, you know, I'm Jewish, so I have an outsider's view of Christianity. But one of the things that I am most impressed with is that the centerpiece of the religion is a human being who was resurrected, who became a new person, and whose story is all about taking on the establishment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's the story. It's hard. It's so hard for me to see how anyone who's a Christian could miss that bit of it.
Yeah. I have a lot of issues with that now. But yes, I agree.
I'll tell you what, after changing my diet and being, you know, becoming awake to a lot of things and changing my mindset on a lot of things, that and not shying away from it, accepting it for what it is, and letting everybody know that's who I am, will test your friendships with a lot of people and relationships.
Yeah.
Not to say that people will tell you they don't want to be your friend anymore, but actions speak louder than words. And when you don't see them anymore, you kind of understand, and you kind of question if you were ever really truly friends because of who you are, or because of the way you were, or what you supported.
Right. Exactly.
And so but it's no reason not to be honest with yourself, though. I mean, it's a way of evolving into what we're going to be, or what we're supposed to be. And, to me, a definition of being a real man is doing the right thing, even when it's the hardest thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, Josh has taught me a lot about Kunas culture and the roots of it. And it seems like you guys are living the roots of it, which, before it became colonized by hyper-consumptive industry. When you're talking about people living in accordance with reality. Like if, it'd be like, saying I don't believe in climate change would be like someone from 200 years ago saying, I don't believe in swamps. It's like, good luck eating.
Yeah, right. And, I think because I'm not, my roots aren't Cajun, but I've been living here longer than I lived in Mississippi. And these people are very simple, which doesn't mean they're not smart. They're very intelligent. They're very smart, earth smart. They know how to survive. But I think I think this culture has overindulged in the things that they use to survive with, because the basics were, they had melitons and thistles. I can't think of the French word for it, but they used the swamps for mostly vegetable stuff. They didn't have, they might have crawfish, but I guarantee you they didn't have 50 pounds of crawfish and had parties. They probably were able to get a few crawfish to make flavor in a soup or a stew or something.
Well, the thing is about the old Cajuns and Kunas is, they may do with what they had, and what they had was what they went out and got via burning calories and moving.
Yes.
They didn't get what they had by just going to a supermarket and getting what they needed and going back home and sitting down. And it was nowhere near in the abundance that you can find it in a supermarket. It was very scarce. So they only had, whatever they could find or grow minimally, and whatever they could go trap or catch, fishing and other things like that. But it wasn't on such a mass scale the way we do it now every weekend. What we call tradition, we've let industry come in and sneak in and influence these so-called traditions because it creates a lot of commerce. And, I think we've lost sight on what true Cajuns did and how they lived their lives. And, to not give up some of these bad practices we have because we, say it's all from tradition, we really need to re-educate ourselves on what we used to do.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with the idea of the, Cajun food is arguably one of the greatest food cultures in the world, and it's based on constraint. It's based on okay, what are we going to do? We found 3 crawfish. What are we going to do?
Exactly.
Right. So to go back to the roots is to return to constraint and innovation and a caloric balance.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So something I'm interested in is, you guys are both, you created this cookbook. You're both really into cooking still. I know Josh was also, really prided himself on his ability to do a bunch of things with food. He's really moved away from it, right? He's like, I can't do that anymore. And I understand why. And he's, I think he's sort of playing with the idea of it's okay to love food, after kind of, decades of addiction and moving away from it. But you guys are both still embracing being great cooks and being in the kitchen.
Right.
Yeah. One reason I just love to cook. I find it's a stress relief for me. I can get in the kitchen and I can throw some stuff together and forget about everything. I can just kind of, it's a dance, But also a thing that makes me want to recreate dishes is to help sell the lifestyle, man. To try and help some of these other people that are, want to be knuckleheads about, I can't give up this, I can't give up that. How about let me try and make it in a certain way. And every bite you take, tell yourself that this will not give me heart disease. This will not give me heart disease. At least I can get it close enough. I can't make it taste as good as, when you putting all of that garbage in it. but I can give you, my challenge is to let me get it as close as I can, and for you to understand and have the clear conscience when you eat it that you're not slowly killing yourself. You know, I had a conversation with a guy today, and we were talking about food and how hitting all these festivals and everything, and how it's so hard to be watching your weight when you're going to all these festivals. And I was like, man, I said, my dream would be for us to still have all of these amazing dishes around here, but not be number one in the country for heart disease. You know, I said, I think we can do both. I really think we can do both. And Josh has said this before, but New Orleans is already a world-renowned place for chefs to come, and they put ideas together and they create these amazing dishes. If we could just change some of the ingredients, we could still be that place that makes all of these amazing dishes happen. But now's the time we could do it and also fix people's health. You know, I think that these chefs are so amazing. You don't have to have the bacon in it. You don't have to have the butter in it. Let's put our thinking cap on, and we can still have amazing dishes without it killing us.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like that's the exciting challenge for you. Is like maybe right now you're at 95%, and it might take you 5 years to get to 96%.
Correct.
Right. That you're willing to keep experimenting to market this life-giving lifestyle to your own community. You guys didn't go off and write a Northern California Sonoma Valley cookbook or something. You took Mississippi, Louisiana. I was just at a conference, the Prevention of Disease conference, and they had a book there that I'd never seen before called Mississippi Vegan. And I looked at it, and it was vegan, but it was nowhere near whole food plant-based. It was still quarter cup of oil in this. And it may be a little bit sad to see kind of a missed opportunity, but you guys are whole food plant-based, right? This is as clean as, an Esselstyn cookbook. Yes.
And it's very important to me, and Josh's story, and if you've read the preface to my cookbook, my story. Food was a very important part of my upbringing, my childhood. It meant more to me than just eating. It meant family being together. It meant good times. It meant love. It meant celebration to me. And so not being able to prepare meals and for my family and have gatherings at my house and hug them with my food was hard for me. And so I said, there's just got to be a way that I can do this without harming my family. Because I realize now what a travesty it was that we were feeding. I personally was feeding my family the foods that was killing them or hurting them, and so I said, "There's got to be a different way. There just has to be," and that was my drive. I wanted to make sure that they had those traditional foods, those foods that were comfort foods, those foods that we were used to eating, but it was in a healthier way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just released a podcast interview today with a Dr. Wayne Jonas, who was talking about, the studies of Mediterranean diets, and they're much healthier than the American diet. And he says that the researchers looked at the food only. That what they didn't look at is that when people were consuming the Mediterranean diets, they were consuming them at large family gatherings.
Right.
His view was that was at least as healthy, as health promoting as the chemicals in the food.
Right. And that's the way all of our food was presented. We always had family gatherings around our food, and I wanted to continue that, but I didn't want the food to harm us anymore. And so that's been a big drive for me. That's been my drive.
All right. And so do you see, when you present this food at, larger gatherings of people who aren't, part of the immediate LaJaunie clan, that people can come and say, okay, now I see I can be healthy and I don't have to change who I am?
They're still reluctant. They'll admit that it's good. I had a coworker the other day. She got of course, she's trying to do the whole food plant-based, and I'm so proud of her for it, because she's stepping out the box, and she's being very open-minded in a society that's not very accepting of that right now. And she said, I tried your lentil loaf. And she said, you know what? It was just like meatloaf. And I said, yes, it's very good. So you can have that and not meatloaf. And so if people will admit that it's good, but they won't commit to fixing food that way or eating that way for a long period of time. They still want to go back to their other foods, you know. So it's frustrating.
It's hard if you're not a good out-the-box thinker. In this society, you're not really taught to be an out-the-box thinker. But you kind of got to just think out the box. And once you realize that you can create meals without having your everyday cookie cutter, what you grew up with, oh, well, I got to have chicken breast, or it's got to have a piece of pork chop, or it's got to have something on the plate. I mean, what's on the plate if there's no meat, you know? But if you think out the box and you get the information of, well, all protein comes from plants, you know, and getting, you know, eating animal proteins, the most inefficient form of protein there is. And you start looking at all these things and then, you know, realize what lentils are. I had no clue what lentils were before I started eating this way.
I've never had lentils.
But you first you have to take the step towards the thing, and then you start being innovative, and you come across lentils, right? So then it's like, okay, well, first I'll just cook them in just a big pile of cooked down lentils, but then you can start using it as a meat substitute. She makes a lentil loaf and mixed with a little oat flour and some other stuff. So you got to take the step and not be afraid. And through the necessities of getting things done, you'll figure out all kind of stuff. Right. You know.
And the lentil loaf is in the cookbook, right?
It is.
Okay, just checking. And Dustin, one thing I know and really admire about you is you've become very passionate about gardening, farming, about the production of the food. You're no longer just, okay, let me go to the supermarket and buy the right food. You've created this whole evolution of turning into a very innovative producer of food as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Just trying to educate myself on getting more familiar with being able to grow, because because of the change of diet and, you know, just because of things I've learned, I want to be able to and have the knowledge. Last year, actually, I really started last year when I hurt my knee. I'd been interested before, but last year I hurt my knee running, and I had to find something to replace the energy, and I put it into a big potato field. I made a potato field. It was more like 4 rows of about 75 feet, 4 75-foot rows of potatoes that was all hand done. And I just started looking into the best ways to grow potatoes, started looking into, you know, how I needed to water them. I came up with my own irrigation system for them. And I even started creating my own fertilizer, my own organic fertilizer that I made right here at home. And I'm just trying to get as much knowledge as I can if the necessity ever hit to where I had to grow my own food. So I'm just experimenting with different things, but it's nothing better than eating what you grow, you know. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer of eating things grown locally. You can't get better than that because, you know, it's from the soil on which you live on. And I think that eating a tomato from the soil in my backyard does my body better than eating a tomato that was grown 100 miles away. Or 1,000 miles away.
Across different countries.
Right, and I think, you know, when I've been down to visit you guys, there's a lot of poverty around, right? And,
yes.
and I wouldn't say you live in a food desert, but probably for a lot of people it sort of feels that way. So, you know, you'll get your food from convenience stores or grocery stores that tend to not really have high quality produce. Like you'd look at it and go, like, no, that does not look like the thing I want to eat.
It's the Family Dollar around here. There's more Family Dollar stores than you can shake a stick at around here. Yeah. And that's sadly a source of a lot of grocery shopping. Yeah. And there's no produce.
Coolers and freezers.
There's no produce.
Yeah.
So what do people buy from Family Dollar?
all processed. It has to be all processed.
Frozen foods.
Frozen processed meats, boxed mac and cheese, crackers, just all, highly processed foods that have long shelf lives, long life.
And, so to be able to show people that you can grow your own food pretty, close to for free, right? Like, I think one of the things I really, when I saw what you were doing with potatoes, I was like, I grew up in the Northeast. Like, if you want a garden, you go to some catalog and you order like a $600 thing, and it comes, and it's kind of like melt and pour. Like you're not really, but you're building things out of nothing, out of scrap, out of things that are already going to waste or lying around or are free. You're sort of innovating with a system that actually puts money in people's pockets.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm right now starting to save my seeds from my produce that I'm getting, because I want to be able to not have to go buy seeds anymore.
Seed bank. Right.
I'm creating a little seed bank. I'm on my second year. Dustin had grown like 2 stalks of okra one year, and I was out walking one day and I saw this huge okra pod. And I said, well, I'm going to pick it and throw it. And I picked it and threw it up on the shelf somewhere, and it dried. And the next year it went to plant. I pulled out those little seeds, and they had like 50 seeds. So I had plenty. I mean, I was giving everybody okra, and I planted okra in my garden and had plenty okra for me. And I'm planting again out of those. I saved those seeds, and I'm planting again from that same pod that I got from Dustin 2 years ago.
Right. If every year you save the best, a pod of the best plant,
yes.
In 10 summers, you've got a new variety, right? That's perfectly, titrated to your soil and your surroundings.
Well,
right.
Keep an eye out for that LaJaunie okra.
You guys are going to keep it open source, though, right? You're not going to.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the cookbook. What made you want to put something out into the world?
Just to help other people and let them know that there's another way, especially people from our area is why I wanted some of these, not to mention, people from our area as well, but a lot of people worldwide are very interested in Cajun food. And I want that plant-based person that's living in the Northwest that wants Cajun food to be able to have an idea of some Cajun food, but not have to worry about changing the recipe. Here's a guy that's already put together a sauce piquant recipe for you if you want to try it, and but also for the guy that lives, 2 miles down the road that needs to lose some weight. Here's a sauce piquant recipe, bruh. You can eat this one instead of the one you make, and let's see if that gets us a little better result.
Yeah.
Right. So how long did it take you to put together a cookbook? Because I know when I read cookbooks, I think, oh, this must have been easy. Like, I've never tried to write one.
Like she said, the hardest part for me was to actually to put a number on and measurements on everything, because I'm just used to getting in the kitchen and dancing with it, add rice and add water, and I'll see might need a little bit more water, or I have too much water, so I need to add a little rice. But to actually measure stuff out was time consuming, was different, but I think was important, because it's the only way you can really share that's the only way I can share what I came up with, what I created, so, and let other people try it. But it was, coming up with the different measurements was the most time consuming part for me. Taking, making everything and cooking it and trying to get good pictures, that was fun. I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, it was the getting everything right. I have when you go to Plant Stock, they give you those little notebooks to write notes in, and I never wrote notes because I was always paying attention to everybody talking, and so that I grabbed that, and that's what I started using to write my recipes down. And it's a mess, because I would write them down, and then I go back and scratch something off and put it a different way, and then I'd scratch it, so it's a mess. It's a mess, and so once I got all that pretty much right, then that's when I said, okay, maybe we can start making the cookbook. And then once you think you get all your measurements right, then you have to cook it the way that that recipe tells you to cook it, which I'm not used to doing anyway, to make sure that when somebody else cooks it, that it'll be correct.
It'll come out right.
Right. And did you guys collaborate on the recipe that was served at the Crescent City Classic for the last few years, or is
No,
that's all yours?
right.
That's my gumbo. Yeah.
Yeah, I had many bowls of that. I probably had as much as if it had been a marathon.
I had actually planned to go this year, but Dustin did the
that was for the Louisiana Marathon. They had your gumbo,
right? And Dustin did the bear bait, and I wasn't able to go because I wanted to go cheer him on. But I want to taste what they did. I want to make sure it's good. Was it good?
It was phenomenal.
Great. They did a good job.
That was Whole Foods that made that, I believe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, there was a lot of people eating that who didn't know about plant-based or anything, right? I mean, the classic. I was in Corral G with 1,000 other people. There must have been 20,000 runners, and most of them in the park at least could see that there was this healthy option of really traditional New Orleans cuisine.
Good.
Oh.
I'm glad they did a good job.
Yeah.
And that took a long time for me to get that recipe just right. And Josh wants to do a live cooking demo with me and Dustin. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is show people how to make a roux without the oil. And it's delicious.
Okay, good, because I need that too. I think I was stirring something for like 20 minutes and nothing was happening. So
because it takes a long time. Yeah, keep stirring and keep doing it before. Yeah, it takes a long time.
Well, maybe you guys need to come out with a line of pre-cooked roux for us Northeasterners with no patience.
Hey, I thought about that actually.
So let's talk about some of the recipes in the book, because like one of my goals in this podcast is just to get this book into thousands of people's hands, because it's that good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it creates converts. It's I mean that's your purpose. That was the tool, is to
absolutely.
Right.
And we're already thinking about a second one. There's many more things we want to conquer.
Cool. And I know
Cajun traditional food. So
what was the next one?
The traditional Cajun foods like coubillon and boudin and etouffees and stuff like that. So we're going to work on it.
Cool. And I got to talk to you guys about a print edition, because people are complaining they don't just want it on their Kindles anymore.
Right. Well, the recipes, there's the pastelaya, which actually it came from the jambalaya, and it's kind of new. And so we have the pastelaya, and then I have my jambalaya, and Dustin has a jambalaya. We have two different recipes. Different cooks cook different ways. I actually like his. His is a red jambalaya. He puts tomato sauce in his, and I have the brown jambalaya. And isn't
that like a big cultural argument about whether tomatoes go in jambalaya?
Not jambalaya, gumbo.
Gumbo, okay.
I have tomatoes in my gumbo, but it's rotel tomatoes, which is spicy, which kind of gives you it's a little okay. But the reason I did that is because the okra will get a little slimy if you don't have that tomato in it. When you were cooking it with all the meats and things, it was different. And so I found that helped kind of cut down on the sliminess of the okra. So I get a reprieve from having tomatoes in my gumbo.
Gotcha.
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that my daddy used to make a turnip stew, and that was his. He loved cooking. My dad loved cooking, and that was one of his favorite dishes he cooked. But of course, it always had tasso in it, and smoked sausage, and bacon, and all that.
What's tasso?
Tasso is, I have no idea. It's like a Cajun sausage.
It's I think it's pork belly.
Okay.
Smoked pork belly is what it is.
Uh-huh.
It was good, and everybody
Sure.
puts tasso and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he put mushrooms and all kind of stuff in it. And so, of course, I wanted to create a turnip stew, and that's in my in my recipe book. And my lentil loaf for sure. And then I have the stuffed bell peppers. I want to do my next project. I want to do a melon, because the Cajun people grow melons and they do a shrimp dressing in them. So I want to try and create that.
And is that the same as the chayote squash?
I have no idea.
Is melon like a little like a squash with a
Yes.
It's a little green,
yeah
pear-shaped vegetable. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Grayson goes to daycare, and of course, I didn't want him eating the foods that they were serving him, so I took the menu from his daycare and I recreated those things. And so that's where my chickpea nuggets came in. That's where my fishless sticks came in, and stuff like that.
That way he can eat the same looking meal as the other kids, but it'd be plant-based.
It looks like everything everybody's eating, so he doesn't get picked on, but he's not eating it. So
yeah, I've heard from people that the fishless sticks are one of the like sleeper hits of the cookbook.
Yeah. I get that. My family requests that quite often, the fishless sticks with white beans, because fried fish with white beans is another traditional Cajun meal, and so they want my fish sticks with the white beans. They request that a lot. So.
Gotcha. Have you heard from people who've gotten the cookbook? The people writing to you, or
I've heard from a few.
Yes, a few. Mm-hmm.
What do you hear?
Good things.
All good.
Awesome. They loved it. I've had a couple of friends cook a few dishes. Some guys in the running club cooking some of the dishes and posting pictures, saying they love it.
All right.
I would have to say my favorite recipe, beside the gumbo, my favorite recipe is the lentil loaf. What's yours?
The lentil loaf's pretty good.
Oh, and I like your sauce pecan. His sauce pecan's amazing.
I would go with the jambalaya. My jambalaya. I hang my hat on that. I used to hang my hat on my jambalaya before I went plant-based, and I've just changed a few ingredients, and I just enjoy cooking it because it's steps. You got to build it,
Right.
Build it in one pot.
Now, one of the other things I noticed about a lot of the recipes is, I'm looking at the table of contents of all the different kinds of recipes, but a lot of them are very similar in terms of the base and the steps. And there's something, I feel like if you cook from this for a couple of weeks, you will start to understand the underlying principles of it, and then you can go and invent your own based on it.
What your flavor is, your roux and your trinity. That's where your flavor starts, and you have to get that right. That's where it starts.
All right, you guys have any plans? So I know Josh is trying to get you in front of a camera to do some demos. I would love to see you guys have a cooking show.
That would be cool.
That would be nice.
I would be so happy to have you guys on the food channel. I would probably even pay for cable if that's what it took.
That's a good idea.
So
that would be awesome.
Okay. And Mona, I know you're also involved with Plant Pure, right? Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yes. Nelson Campbell contacted me. Of course, we did a jump start last year in our area. And Nelson, for some reason, is enamored with our area, of course, because it's just amazing. It's unique, and I love it, the swamps and all, and the traditions. And so he wanted to do another jump start here in this area this year. And so I've been working on that for probably a couple of months now. It's going to start June 1st. I have 26 participants, and I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping I can help some people realize that we can still have good food and still be healthy.
Mm-hmm. And who are the people? Who are the 26? Well, how would you describe them?
It's a good mix. I have a coworker that's a teacher that's a part of it. I have probably 3 or 4 nurses. I have a nurse practitioner. I have just regular lay people that are wanting to lose weight and learn how to get healthier. I also have an amazing doctor in Homa, a local doctor that's excited to help and support me in this. And so that's gonna help spread the word. So I'm excited about this. I'm hoping it's going to really help our community get healthier.
Wow, and that sounds like that might be the leverage, because right, like the LaJaunie family succeeded, and then you kind of hit a wall in terms of going outside to the wider community. But doctors and nurses,
yes,
right? Like we find, and Josh has told me the story plenty of times about Bam Bam's doctor kind of poo-pooing the changes that had gotten him to lose all his weight, and that if someone like who are we to tell someone something that contradicts what their doctor says?
Right.
So that all of a sudden you get the healthcare people on. I think that might be the turning point for Chack Bay and Homa.
Takes one excuse away anyway.
Right. This doctor has stepped out. She went to the lifestyle medicine conference in California. I think you and Josh were a part of, and because I've tried to reach out several times to our local hospital, to our local fitness center, our registered dietitians, and probably about 3 or 4 times, and I was turned down all times, every single time. And so they're still very reluctant to be a part of it. So that's why I was really excited to have this doctor on board with us. And she's from Homa, and so she's almost local. She's about 20 miles away, and just been an amazing support for us. So I'm really excited about her being a part of this, and then the nurses and the nurse practitioner being a part of this, so they can spread that message to patients, that need this way of eating.
Mm-hmm. And so Nelson's providing the meals and some support curriculum?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Right. Mm-hmm. And is this going to be for another movie? He will be coming down and filming some of the results and talking to some of the people. Yes, it's going to be, he filmed last year, and it's just going to be an addition to the filming that he did last year. Great. Has he asked you guys for recipes for plant pure foods?
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right, I'm going to put that bug in his head.
Not yet. So.
All right. Anything we haven't talked about that you guys want to share?
I don't think so. I think we covered. I just would love everyone to try our book, and it's not because we want to make money, because we're trying to charge the least amount we can. I just want people to see that you can cook and healthy and have good food and have your family around good food and still be healthy.
Awesome. And the book is called Pure Ambrosia. Where does the title come from?
From my dad. Okay. And I can't tell you. Dustin can tell you.
Bam Bam. Every time. The first time I've heard him use the word ambrosia, pure ambrosia, was we were at his fishing camp, and I was probably 8 years old. And he had us jump out of the boat, me and Josh and myself, and some other people were still in the boat, but the only people that got out were me and Josh. And we were told to go pick oysters. So we had a 5-gallon bucket and a hammer, and we were out there all day getting sunburnt, picking oysters and getting dirty. And we got back to the camp, and Bam Bam taught us how to shuck the oysters. And everybody got cleaned up, and we were in the camp in the kitchen. And Bam Bam was cooking the soup. He had a stool pulled up to the stove, and he was cooking it was a butter cream based soup that he was making, and had oysters in it. And but after everybody was cleaned up and at the kitchen table, and he called us over, the guy, me and Josh, because we picked the oysters, and he had us taste the soup. And right after we had tasted it, he just kind of slapped his hands together and folded his arms and leaned back, and he said, "Boy, that's pure ambrosia, isn't it?" And I had never heard of, and I never knew what it meant, but I would always say it as explaining how good something was, And after finding out, searching for a title for the book, and I was like, it's perfect because it means the food of the gods, and it just ties in everything, even though it's not the same food that I learned that saying from, it still hits it home because, my Bam Bam said it, and now it can be referring to good tasting food that gets us healthy.
Yes.
And I just thought it was the perfect name.
And he said that quite often.
He said it very often.
And a lot of times he was shaking a drink when he would say it, pure ambrosia. So, yes, very meaningful for us, and it was the perfect title.
Great. So it's both completely honoring and rooted in tradition,
yes,
and at the same time flipping it on its head.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely.
So beautiful. So the book is Pure Ambrosia. It's available on Amazon Kindle. We got to talk offline about turning it into a print book soon.
Yes.
And Dustin and Mona, thank you so much. It's been such a heart-opening experience getting to know you guys over the last few years, and to see.
It's ours. I'm assure
Thank you, man. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate everything.
You're an amazing person, and I love your wife. You sweetheart.
Oh, I'm gonna go give her a hug and tell her you said that.
I want to tell you, I love your blue fingernail polish.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. It is, It's. I showed it to Sarai. She thinks it's for Code Blue.
Hey, I will be glad when that comes out too.
Right on. All right. Well, we're all on different fronts, moving humanity forward. So thank you guys so much for all you do for Pure Ambrosia and for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye. I hope you were inspired and delighted by that conversation. And I also hope you're going to go and get a copy of Pure Ambrosia off of Amazon. You can also find that link for the show notes for today's episode, which is number 325. So at plantyourself.com/325, you can find links to the book, to Dustin's appearance on the Today Show, to Mona's work with Plant Pure Pods. It's all there, plantyourself.com/325. If you're new to the show, I've got hundreds and hundreds of archived episodes over at plantyourself.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I heard today it's official that iTunes is going away. It's going to be replaced by, among other things, Apple Podcasts, and those reviews really, really help me reach more people. You can also share this and other episodes on social media, let people know. And of course, you can become a patron of the show at plantyourself.com. Just click on the right sidebar, the Patreon link, to make an ongoing monthly contribution. Even $1 a month helps a great deal, and you also get access to all the healthy habit huddles. As I like to say, I stole from the Guardian newspaper online, the Plant Yourself podcast is free for those who can't afford it because it's supported by those who can. So if you can and you align with the mission of this show, I would love it if you could join us elbow to elbow to keep this going into the world. All right, let's talk about garden news. We've got a whole bunch of sweet potato slips that have gone into the ground. I've been making some green smoothies with spring kale and collards. And we got a whole bunch of peas, snap peas, snow peas that we harvested 2 weeks too late. So they're taking a lot more effort we now have to shell them before we can eat them, but they still are absolutely delicious. We're getting now a handful of blueberries every day. And it looks like, fingers crossed, this might be the first good Scuppernong muscadine grape season in about 3 or 4 years. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of bunches of tiny little green grapes, and I hope nothing happens to them so that by September we can be harvesting 5-gallon buckets of them. In running news, still dealing with the old PF, the plantar fasciitis. I've gotten some relief from ice packs, from certain stretches, from doing melt method exercises, from Tom DeLonzo Baker's total motion release. Nothing has quite solved it yet. I did go to CVS and I bought one of these right angle foot braces to keep my foot at a 90-degree angle at night, but I had to take it off after an hour. It was not fun. So still working on the cure for plantar fasciitis. Meanwhile, did a 4-mile limp today, and I've got Ultimate Frisbee Old Men Regionals coming up this weekend. So hopefully it'll hold up for a couple of games. And if it does, then I will be going to Aurora, Colorado for Nationals if we come in first or second down in Atlanta this weekend. All right, thank you to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali-Dan, The Dance of Peace. Check out willridenauer.com for more. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Got a new one this week, so here goes. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Marrow, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Christine Nielsen, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Volkanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious, Michelle X, Elspeth Feldman, Victoria Dolomanova, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Andrew, Josina, Julian Rowland, Stu Donlick, Sarah Durkis, Ramses Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Pedersen, Leanne Peterson, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Benham, Gila Sayre, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorota Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesen, Ruth Ann Funderburk, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, The Equally Mysterious, Tracy Z, Alicia Lemus, Rebecca Hughes, Val Linneman, Rhymes with Cinnamon, Nick Carper, Stephanie Holmes, Martha Bergner, Nicole Ramsey, Susan Ahmad, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable, Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Ashley Corcoran, Kelly Machia, Deanne Norton, Bonnie Lynch, Plant Happy Oregon, Sabina Kurtzels, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Coble, Shel Rudless, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Brian Sheridan, Shannon Hirschman, Kate Rolls, Linda Ayat, Julie Langholm, Hedegard, Isa Tuzin, Wakani, Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Aviva Lael, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Orlikoski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Tanya Lewis, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Kelly Baker Miracle, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Valerie Peltier, Peter W. Evans, Colleen Harrison, Justine Divitt, Joshua Sommermeyer, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Lori Fenny, Linnea Lundquist, Valerie Hummel, Deb Casilla, Emily Iaconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leanan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bill Brielle, Gunter Schmidt, Marjorie Lewis, Kelly Molden, Tricia Adams, Ian Kramer, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarit Hagen, Tracy Gullis, Laura Heaton, Meg for Mama Says, Rochelle Kennedy, Joan Borstein, and Diana Goldman for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for this week. As always, be well, my friends. So if you appreciate the Plant Yourself podcast and would like to help support the mission of the show, there's a few easy ways to do it. One is to just go to wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. Let other people know about it. Give us some stars. Give us some love. And that really helps us be found by more people. Something else, of course, you can do is let someone know about this podcast. Someone who you think would benefit. Send them maybe a couple of episodes that you think would pique their interest, or just ask them to subscribe in general. And third, you can join arms and become a patron, a financial supporter of this show. You may have noticed that there's no advertising in the show, and it's free for everyone, and it's supported, paid for by those who can afford it. So if you would like to make a one-time contribution or an ongoing monthly pledge, you can do so at plantyourself.com/gift. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song, Sabali-Dan, The Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Marrow, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jean Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Christine Nielsen, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Volkanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious, Michelle X, Elspeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Andrews, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Rhymes with Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Pedersen, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Benham, Gila Sayre, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorota Vizov, Gio and Carol Argentati, Jody Friesen, Ruth Ann Funderburk, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, The Equally Mysterious, Tracy Z, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Rebecca Hughes, Val Linneman, Rhymes with Cinnamon, Nick Harpers and Martha Bergner, Susan Ahmad, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable, Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Kelly Machia, Deanne Norton, Bonnie Lynch, Plant Happy Oregon, Sabina Kurtzels, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Copel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Shannon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Colm Hedegard, Isa Tuzawakani, Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Orlikowski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Tanya Lewis, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Valerie Peltier, Peter W. Evans, Colleen Harrison, Justine Divitt, Joshua Summermeyer, Dennis Bird, Darmy Kelly, Laurie Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Valerie Hummel, Emily Iaconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan McCorney, Stephen Lehman, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bill Brielf, Gunter Schmidt, Marjorie Lewis, Kelly Molden, Tricia Adams, Ian Kramer, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunn-Marie Hagan, Tracy Gullis, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Rochelle Kennedy, Diana Goldman, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, Holly Butler, Diana, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Param Ganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Olga Sidorowska, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Nayak, Erica Piedra, and Danielle Roberts for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for today. As always, be well, my friends.